Take it away.
Okay, take it away. Okay, well, I'll start again. So, welcome everybody to our next installment of our Agile Hartford group. As you see on the slide that we're showing right now, there are multiple ways to get in touch with us. After tonight, after Tricia's presentation tonight, we're going to post the recording in YouTube, but feel free to reach out to us by all these means and stay connected with the community. We'd really appreciate having you connect with us, even if it's just to tell us that we need to improve. We need to hear that. Next slide, please.
You got it.
And this is your board. I'm Larry Bach. We also have Steve Nunziata, Dave Kisnowski. We have Janet Custer, Vin Sakaraj, and Christine. I'll just say Coach Chris. That's how she is known throughout the internet. And we are here for you. So if you have any feedback, let us know. If we're doing a good job, please let us know. If we're not doing a good job, or there's things that you can see that you'd like improving for us to improve on, please let us know that as well. We're here to serve your needs. Steve, if you want to talk through this one, please.
Sure. To further Larry's point, we're going to send a survey out to you at the conclusion of the meeting, and that is your opportunity to weigh in and let us know what we can do to better serve our Agile Hartford community, which now is over 1,000 members strong.
Excellent. Very good.
So I can take this one too, Larry. So
okay.
As always, we thank Energizing Group for their sponsorship. I'm not sure if Diane has made it on yet. I'm going to take that as a no. She told me her internet was kind of having problems. But Eliason will be sending an appreciation to you, Tricia. So please be on the lookout for that. And also, we are appreciative for Eliason for being our gold partner for these many years.
We're going to send you just a little small token to help you on your trip at the end of the year. Very small, comparatively. Here are some upcoming events that we have. So on November the 9th, still virtual, we are going to have Paula Espinosa at 6:30 p.m. On November the 9th to talk to us about coaching lenses for solving complex problems. Don't miss it. It's going to be a good one. And then December the 9th in person. This is going to be interesting. So Steve, you might want to talk more about this because, to be honest, I've never been to Hartford, so I don't know where City Steam is.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have to take care of that this year, Larry, and fly you up. But City Steam is a brew pub in downtown Hartford, and they have a back room. They have dedicated beer taps. And we usually have our annual end of year event there in person with a speaker, with hors d'oeuvres, with drinks, and it's a great time. Anytime you get Agile and beer together, as you saw from Dave Kiersnowski earlier, it's a ripping good time. So look forward to that.
By the way, just
area.
In case you were wondering why I say I've never been to Hartford, I haven't. I'm actually in Texas, in San Antonio, and have been here for a number of years. So one of these days, maybe in City Steam, you can ask Steve how I got affiliated with this group. It's not that sordid or anything, but good background information. Next slide, please.
You got it.
Okay. Tricia Broderick, I am not going to read that slide there.
Can we not do that again, please? No.
Okay, well, let me just give you that. Let me give you the synopsis version. I'll give you a different version of it. So Tricia may not remember this, but I met her, probably, I don't know, 6-7 years ago at least, when she came down to the company that I work for. I work for USAA in San Antonio. She came down and gave us a talk on something to do with Agile, I'm sure. And I had seen her before at different conferences, but that one, because it was more, more intimate, I was blown away. And I have generally followed, I'm not a stalker, not a creeper, but Tricia, I've been following you in different, through different avenues. I've seen you, I think it was the 2018 or 2019 Agile 20 conference that you were the I don't know what you call it, the leader of the whole thing. You put the whole thing together. It was great. So I've been, okay, so I'll say it. I've been a stalker for a number of years, and I'm proud of it. Anyway, for everybody else, I want to recommend that you take a look at Tricia's book. that I'm sure she'll talk about, Lead Without Blame. And without further ado, Tricia, before I get crazy, all yours.
Thanks. The bios are always the worst. So I actually rather have that. I mean, it's totally creepy, but I'd rather have that of stalker acknowledgement than the bio reading thing. It's just never the fun part. Although I must acknowledge that I'm still not really soaked in that I wrote a book with Diana Larson. Like, I don't know if that's fully soaked in fully yet, but we're going to keep going with it. So I'm going to share my screen, but we're going to use chat or shout outs as much as possible while we're in here with this. Okay. So versus having people get on the board with it. How many people, by a show of hands or a yes in chat, have ever experienced when a room goes silent and everyone turns either to you or to the leader that walked in the room? Yeah. It's always a joyful moment, right? When that happens, so uncomfortable. Or this moment when someone's like, well, you told me to do that. And you're like, no, I didn't. When did I say that? I didn't tell you to do that. And then all of a sudden they're doing things and implying that you instructed them then. You're like, no, I didn't. Or have this thought as the leader. I just want to be one of the team. I just want to be collaborating. I mean, isn't Agile about engaging and just being team? And who cares what my title is? And that's the interesting thing is I used to say that all the time. And I would get tripped up and I would say it. And I would say things like, who cares what my title is? I'm just one of the team. Until the moment that one person looked at me and said, must be nice saying from an executive title that you have. I'm like, oh, truth hurts. Because there was that dynamic. When we were writing our book and talking through what often leaders fall into traps of blame and shame and fall into these useless patterns of trying to do the right things, but heading down paths that really are not helpful. One of the areas that I personally got tripped up on over and over and over again was power dynamics, because I wanted to believe that if I was just nice enough, that if I just was part of the team, that they didn't exist, that nobody cared about them, that it wasn't a big deal. Because I, as some of my colleagues will say, you get the same Tricia no matter who's in the room. That's also a good thing and a bad thing, people. It can really go either way, right? But the reality was, for me, power dynamics didn't really come into play, and yet they did. So when I became a leader, I pretended as if I could just wish away power dynamics. And it just wasn't the case. And instead, it was causing me problem after problem after problem. So let's first go through 4 key power dynamics. And share my screen again. Okay, so let's go through 4 key power dynamics. The first one is formal power. And this is what people most think about. Formal power is the one that is based on the org chart. This person, because of their placement in an org chart, has the ability to force action or have consequences, whether it's perceived or real. But they have some hierarchical, formal authority that can force action. This is the one that most people talk about, think about when they say something about power in the workplace. But there are others. And another one is called influential power. Now, influential power is the power, and I'm actually going to use Larry for this now. See, you set me up and we're going to go with it now, Larry. I might have some influential power with Larry. If Larry has followed me for a while, respected my work, respected what I've done, then there's a good chance that I could say something that's totally bat crazy. And Larry would go, well, Tricia said it, so maybe there's some truth to it, right? Like, this is influential power, where someone that you have stalking power, like where you have built a lot of respect for, they end up having ability to sway you. Whether you want that power or not, whether it's something you're trying to do or not, when you've earned respect, it means people may defer to you. And you do not have to have a formal position to actually have influential power. Hopefully, most of your formal power positions also have influential power, but it's not a guarantee. Then you have what's known as dominant power. And dominant power is what is the status quo, the norm? What is expected? What has momentum? The momentum is that we just all shout out over each other. And so if you don't like shouting over everybody, tough, your voice is just not going to be heard. Or, hey, as a sole female in a group full of men, there are certain topics I'm not talking about because the majority of those conversations, what the norm is expected is different, right? So dominant power represents that phrasing. This is the way we've always done it. And it influences bias. It influences expectations. It influences our decisions just by going with what is expected or what's known, what's in the comfort zone. And then you have unidentified power. Now, unidentified power might be truly unidentified. Might be like, how many people have ever had that moment where you're like, something's not fully being said here, but you don't know what, you don't know why, it's just nothing makes sense, right? Like something else is going on. I remember sitting in a board meeting once and going, okay, we are not having this conversation about bylaws innocently. What is not being said, right? What's unidentified? And it truly might be unidentified, but more times than not, it's not unidentified. It's not able to be transparent. So it's identified. We all know the elephant in the room, but we can't talk about it. So we can't identify it. So sometimes it's purely unidentified. Sometimes it's just not able to be transparent about it. So let's test this out for a second. And I've got a scenario here. I'm going to have everybody read this scenario. Stick a dot in the chat just so I know when people, I have no basis of knowing how long it takes people to read. Okay. So let me scroll this back for just a second. Which power dynamics are involved? Which power dynamics might be showing up in this scenario?
The formal one, because she's an executive.
So how does formal show up? What does Sue do that is using her power, formal power over people?
I think she's invited herself to all the retros.
Yeah. Now this might seem crazy, right? But the thing is like Sue did not wake up going, how am I going to insult people today? I know, I'll invite myself to a meeting. Like that's probably was not even in the realm of possibility in Sue's mind. But the reality is Sue used formal power to invite herself. She made it clear she could and she would.
And she did.
And she didn't ask. Now, should that be a problem? Maybe, maybe not. but she's brand new. She doesn't know, and she is still using her formal power as her right to invite herself. Larry, you put influential. How's influential showing up?
Right, I just read it again and I realized, no, I should have said informal power.
Well, it's influence and informal, so it's the same. They're the same thing. Influence and informal. Yep.
Well, it was the example you said of just because that person said it, we listen, even if they're giving us something totally off the wall. In this situation, she comes in as the senior vice president or whatever, vice president of marketing, and everybody automatically looks to her expecting a certain that she's going to act a certain way.
Yep. So there's now, in some cases, that could be almost a little bit of the dominant because there's an expectation, a status quo that this is what executives do because of the former VP. But there was even influential in terms of, hey, they were calling out things, but trying to be respectful and not really highlighting their own issues because they don't want to impact their own influence. And that dominant of that she's an expert, right? Yep. What's that unidentified then in here?
Is it the culture?
There's just this cultural confusion. Like Sue's defensive. Like what, why are you blaming me? Right? Sue's taken aback. Sue's surprised and then feels blame, which then is going to lead to shame. The problem is with this reaction from Sue, is this going to move them to a healthier place?
No.
And here's the problem though. Sue goes home and drinks heavily tonight. Why?
Because she's feeling put out because folks, censored themselves with her on the call.
She just wanted to be one of the team. She wanted to celebrate. She wanted to and now she's, unfairly treated but yet not acknowledging the power that was also showing up in that room. I've been Sue. Sue was based on me. The reality is this is super, super common. And it happens over and over and over again. And then we get frustrated and then relationships, and then we start going into the us versus them. So we need to acknowledge that we can't be doing power over and then being surprised by the reaction. So power over often sounds like that's the way we've always done it. Just do it because I said so, right? Like this, just trust me. And none of those are going to result in a better outcome. If power always exists, these four things always exist. The question is whether as a leader, you have them make positive or negative impact. And either way, it influences engagement because the way she reacted, the way she acted initially caused negative impact. Then the way she reacted caused additional negative impact. And Sue's just trying to be a human being. Sue's not walking into the day going, how can I make this a miserable day for everybody? That is not what Sue was doing. But power has a positive or negative impact. And that influences engagement. And then it's a bad spiral from there. And this is why when Diana and I were writing this was such an important topic to really start digging into this, because we can't ignore that power is there. But we do have to shift from power over to power with. Now, I'm going to give just a couple examples in here. There's lots of different things you can do with power with, but I'm going to give you a couple examples. But this is just a quick meetup, so we're going to give you a couple quick examples, okay? The first one is shine a spotlight on. So often when we're a leader, we're quick to try and solve the problem. We're quick to jump in with that solution, give that quick answer. I had two lead developers approach me once and they said, oh, Tricia, if I annotate on a shared screen, does it annotate right on my Miro board like that? I don't know. We'll just do it on the Miro board and we'll see what happens for a second. So one lead developer came to me, was like, I'm doing too much work and nobody's taking on and doing anything else. And so I said, okay, well, fine. So I went, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to shine a spotlight on the problem. But to be honest, my shining of a spotlight on the problem really looked more like this. Like I was doing it passive aggressively. Like I was like, okay, lead developer. And then I said, this is all the tasks they're working on. And then I put, here's this developer. And I said, this is their task. Here's another developer and this is their task. And here's another developer and they're doing this. And so what I expected to happen was like one of these three to go, oh, I'm so embarrassed. We should do more work. Like I was trying to shame them. That is not shining a spotlight. But because I was smart enough, at least in that moment, not to say anything else, but I just put up transparently what was at the end of that sprint, a very interesting thing happened. This person went, will you please let us do something? What was actually happening was not the developers just not stepping up and doing anything. What actually was happening was during the sprint planning, every single time that it was like, oh, it's just faster if I do that. I'll just do that one. I'll just do that one. I know what that one already is. And by the end of the sprint, they felt the weight of it, but they didn't acknowledge their own behavior that was leading to it. But they had formal power and they had influence power. So everybody was deferring to that. And then they were getting mad at the people deferring to that. So by shining a spotlight on the problem, the real conversation could happen. The real conversation about what was causing the problem could happen. And if I had just tried to fix it, I would have made it worse. Because I would have went up to those developers and been like, pick up more work, right? Not understanding that that wasn't the real problem. I would have been using my formal power, forcing them to not address the real root issue that was making them not collaborate well together. And I would have been forcing them to collaborate even worse. Power over sometimes can get you a short-term gain, but it will not win in the long term. Long term, you shine a spotlight on a problem and you try to help them get to that place where they can embrace that. So in chat, out of curiosity, on a high, medium, or low, how likely are you to try and shine a spotlight, to try and reduce down some of the power dynamics? See, I start off with one that seems kind of easy. See how I do that? Yeah, you just wait. You just wait. They get harder. Okay. So and there's many ways to doing this. Okay. To shining a spotlight, but that's one example. Another option that you can do is expand connections. There was somebody on my team. How many people have ever formed a tiger team or been on a tiger team? You know, those special elite teams that have to get the really special project done. They call them different things, but yeah, we always call them tiger teams. So I formed another tiger team, right? Because that was my job. That was my formal power job. And I had a lot of influence power in the organization. And I formed a tiger team because I needed the best of the best. And in walked somebody that was not selected. And they punched me in the gut with such love, but it still sucked. And they said, Tricia, did it ever occur to you that they're the best because you keep picking them? It's easy to think about expanding connections by holding something like, do a hackathon for the day, or do a lunch and learn and let people showcase, right? If I put in a high, medium, or low, lunch and learns where people can showcase their talents, high, medium, or low, lunch and learns. Okay, I appreciate Chris the low on that one. I'm kind of curious about that, but we'll save that for another day, right? Lunch and learns, easy way to showcase people's talents and other interests and knowledge and things like that. no cost, low bars, things along those lines. But if I said, let people pick and volunteer for projects and you don't pick them, now where is that? High, medium, or low? Let people pick. You don't pick them. Painful. Thank you, Scott. Low, Larry, right? I appreciate the highs where you're my peeps right there, right? But it's scary. But here, let's think about this. And it is risky in some regards, Jacques. But let's think about this. When we pick these individuals, we give them the best environments, the best tools. We totally let them focus in. We give them all the support in the world. They get a new learning opportunity and they're successful. There might be a reason they're the best. Because we've made it optimal for them to be the best. So when we're talking about expanding those connections, this is one of those things I think about a lot as a leader and going, can I believe in people before they believe in themselves? And if I can, then I'm being a leader. And I'm expanding those connections. I'm expanding the influential power, and I'm not just holding on to it and then wondering why these individuals get it. Because yeah, once you do it once, you get another opportunity. And then because I got that opportunity, I got even better. So let's try a third one. Provide balance. Now, provide balance is an interesting one that you can use really simplistically for introverts versus extroverts, or really like talkative people like me who think something here and really I think by it coming out of my mouth. Let's get real. Okay. I don't know if I think here, I think here. Like that's my mode of operation. And so when we do one of those shout outs, I thrive in a shout out. I have no problem interrupting people. I have no problem yelling louder than people. I have no problem. I'm not proud of it. Okay. I'm not proud of it, but I enjoy it. I thrive in that kind of environment. I built a career in that kind of environment, but not everybody enjoys it. So if you let the status quo just be a massive one-case meeting where everybody's just going to shout out, then do you think all voices are being heard? But Tricia, they have an opportunity to. Do they really? We have to learn as leaders facilitation techniques that help us provide balance in that room for the dominant powers. Sometimes those facilitation techniques are very direct. Hey, my subject matter expert, you are the first to speak, the second to speak, the fourth to speak, the fifth to speak. Stop it. You can't speak anymore until 3 people speak. Now, when that happened, the facilitator made a statement, that person did not speak. And what did everybody else in that room do? Turned and looked at that person and stared. It was an uncomfortable 5 minutes, people. Very uncomfortable 5 minutes. But he did not speak. And finally, one other person spoke, and then they all turned immediately to him again. And I'm like, 1, you got 2 more people, 2 more, right? Like, and nobody knew what was going on. But at the end of the day, he had formal power, he had influential power, and he had created a behavior that was also a dominant power. And as a result, the expectation was that he talked. Now, his motivation for being the first to speak, the second to speak, the fourth to speak, the fifth to speak, was because he was trying to be efficient. He was trying to get things done and nobody was talking. But just like when I shined a spotlight on the first problem, he did not know that his behavior contributed to the nobody talking. So sometimes I do it really directly of like helping people realize hey, you're what I call an accidental interrupter. I see you because I am you. You're not interrupting because you're trying to be rude. You're interrupting because you think by talking and you get so excited by what somebody said that it flies out of your mouth. Here's a tip I use. Write it down on a piece of paper so that other person can finish their thought. To this day, I'm at home and I still have Post-it notes all around me because I'm an accidental interrupter. Or I also use facilitation techniques like 1, 2, 4, all. 1, let everybody think of their own idea first. Why is that beneficial?
Because some ideas burn other ideas and you can be taken off track by the idea that you heard.
Yep. So you don't want any kind of group thinking. You want them to feel like they're engaged, they're contributing. Then you pair them with somebody else. So everybody pairs up and discusses their ideas. Why is that beneficial? And just a pair.
Each of them have an
Immediate
opportunity
feedback.
to speak.
Yeah, they're each are getting a chance to speak. They get to find out if they were way off in the weeds because so many people are afraid of sharing their idea of like, well, what if I'm thinking of something totally different? I don't want to be embarrassed in front of people. Then why do you go to 4? So you take that pair and you have them pair up with another pair. Why?
Feedback. So a little bit larger group.
Slightly a little bit larger, it gets you a little bit more feedback, a little bit more alignment, a little bit more understanding, but not doing it trying to get everybody's voice in all at one time. And then you can do 8 or just go to all. But at that point, when you do all, even if someone doesn't actually talk in that large group shout out, did they still engage? They still feel their voices heard. And often you'll hear that when you pair up or you do groups with other people and you'll hear people go, well, what Steve said, like, and I won't even give my idea. It's somebody else's idea. That's the kind of balance you want in the team. You're expanding connections and providing balance with these facilitation techniques. They're not, so many people like think about the facilitation techniques as like, oh, it's just like exercises you do. No. They're creating trust. They're creating collaboration. So, but you have to plan for it. And it takes a long time to design good facilitation. So where is your commitment level for high, medium, or low to up your facilitation game? No right or wrong answers. There's just truths, right?
You may have said this and I just missed it. The technique that you just described, is there, I mean, if your entire group is only 4 people, it may not work. So if it's 100 people, yeah, work it.
You could still do 1, 2, all, or
Yeah.
it'd just be 1, 2, all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's a liberating structure is 1, 2, 4, all.
Okay.
So let me try some other concepts now. Now we've got these 3 out here. Before I give you the 4th one, we've got these 3 out here. So let's throw out these crazy options, right? Try an experiment that is completely opposite of the current approach, even if no problem has been raised. So you're not going to hold the daily scrum anymore. High, medium, or low? So as I throw these out here, I've got a couple more. As I throw them out here, I want you to think about which power parts are coming in for you. Okay. Is it because That's a control thing, right? Is it what's coming in there? You're nervous about identify, right? You cancel a second half of an experiment because the first day didn't work. It was crap. Second half of a meeting, you just cancel it. Second day of a training, I don't care. You just realize didn't work. I'm going to cancel it. Second day of the training. We're not going to do it. High, medium, or low. Now we're getting to some different numbers. Look at that. See how this plays out. Okay. How about giving the CEO the 5 dysfunctions of a team book and asking him to read it? So I have done it. And luckily, and I thought in that moment, I was like, I'm still getting fired. I'm still getting fired. And as I was leaving his office, he's like, Tricia. And I'm like, see, here it is. I'm getting fired right now. And he's like, Tricia. And I was like, and I turn around and I was like, yes. And he's like, and in my head, I'm just like, I'm getting fired. I'm getting fired. I'm getting fired. And he goes, you're quite remarkable. Here's the thing. Most leaders, we say this statement: we hire the best people. But if you are too worried about formal, influential, dominant, unidentified power, you're not being the best person. Now, I'm not saying you have to go. These are all just options out there. Do not all go buy the 5 dysfunctions of a team book tomorrow and give it to your CEO. I'm not saying to do that. These are example situations, right? What I'm highlighting, though, is how easy it is for us to stay with the dominant flow because we just fall in line with these power dynamics. We can't do that. That's career limiting. Steve, I literally taunted myself with that as I was walking into the room. He did call me back into his office the next week and I still went, I'm getting fired. I'm getting fired. And he's like, so it's not the book you want to identify with. I was like, well, that's good. But there were so many things I loved about this CEO, right? And that's where, depending on the CEO, Chris, it comes into play, right? Like there were so many factors that came into play. And you don't want to start with the hardest one, but you do want to start thinking about, are you changing things up? Are you providing balance? If you keep asking people to experiment and you never experiment because you're convinced this is the only way to do something, you've got dominant power go. And I cannot tell you how many times I have been wrong as a leader. More times than I was probably right. My job as a leader is to create the right environment for curiosity and experimentation. And I can't have power dynamics, especially that dominant power, really coming in and just making it easy because it's the status quo. So when I say provide balance, it's not just having the underrepresented heard. It's about being willing to experiment, to change things up, to learn how to respond to chaos, not just the mode of don't wake the sleeping baby. Because every time I thought I was getting fired, I haven't been. There was one time I did come super close. I changed all the status reports to red instead of green because you should start a project in red, not green, as the director of project management. So I turned all the project status reports to red. I met people in the organization I didn't even know actually existed. And I went, okay, today I'm getting fired. And I think that day I was very, very close. But other than that, I've never actually been fired. I still think I was right about that, but that's a different rant for a different day. So The last tip I want to give over here, and the last area I want to talk about, is embracing the conflict. How many people have heard the words or something in its essence similar to, it's business, it's not personal? You are quoting a fictional movie. You are quoting a fictional movie about the mob as your business best practice mantra. A mobster family is your mentor for how you want to approach the work-life balance. No. Here's a little secret. Ready? Human beings are personal. Work is personal. And just because you tell me, if you fire me and you say it's not personal, is it still personal to me? So this notion that we have that we can devoid workplaces of being personal is ridiculous. Oh, and by the way, we also want you to be creative and innovative and really engaged and all of that and totally be seen and heard. Oh, but also, you know, be a robot. It doesn't go together. But to embrace diversity means to embrace conflict. Now, conflict and drama are not the same thing. Conflict and drama are not the same thing. Drama, bad. Conflict is just a problem to solve. So we need to, if the whole point of diversity is that we are better with our different experiences and ideas and thoughts, then different equals conflict. And that's just a problem to solve. But we have to embrace that conflict and not run away from it. If we run away from it, that's when it turns into drama. That's when we start getting unidentified and all these power dynamics start really getting into power over. So if I come to this embrace the conflict, there's a technique by CR Global called 2% truth. And 2% truth, the best way for me to give this is to actually demonstrate the example of when I first used it. So I had a very bad formal power dynamic with a VP. There was no influential power. I did not respect her in the least bit. Not, in fact, my disrespect of her was growing on a regular basis. Like she would say up, I would say down just out of spite at this point. Like it was getting bad. I teach about conflict. I felt like a massive failure, right? Like I was like, why is this happening? What is the deal? Like I just couldn't figure it out. It just was driving me bonkers. And so, but eventually I gave up and I was like, this is not for me. I cannot help. You do not want me to lead, you know, and I quit and I went someplace else. But on my last day, she says, I would like to give you some feedback. Now, when she said, I would like to give you some feedback, the Sue in me came out and I could already feel myself getting defensive. I could already feel myself being upset, but I know better than that. I know that that's just not going to serve any good. So instead, when I got that feedback, I was like, how do I not be defensive about this? Well, I'm going to use what I call what I've learned is 2% truth. So she says to me, Tricia, you do not connect with people. Now, I have a laundry list of issues. I'm a bit much. Okay, not a bit. I'm a lot. I'm a lot for people to deal with sometimes. I'm loud, I'm animated, I'm even worse in person. Like it's a little obnoxious. I get it. You could talk about my need for check marks. I know I make list of lists. Like my kids make fun of me for the just in case because I always make them take things just in case, right? I've got issues for days, people. But she says the one thing that I'm proud of. But I'm like, nope. I'm not going to get defensive. I'm going to find the 2% truth. I'm going to embrace this conflict. So I had to pause and I had to take a deep breath. And I went, what is 2% of what she just said that I can agree with? And I responded with, yes, you and I did not connect. Now, she wasn't coming at me from just me and her. But that was the 2% that I could agree with. What do you think her reaction was from that?
Do you think her intent was to try and help you or to validate herself?
I'm not actually sure. I can't guess her intent. But how did she react? By me being vulnerable and agreeing with 2%, what did she react with?
Yeah, I'm thinking she might have just like been taken back a little bit, maybe.
She
Didn't really know how to react.
Yeah, she was expecting a fight.
Yeah.
She was expecting Sue's reaction, right? And that was only going to justify her opinion. Instead, she was taken aback and went, why? We're both strong women, right? And then we were able to have some of this discussion. So I want you to stop and think of a problem that you have, a conflict that's going on for you right now. And what is your part in that conflict? What's 2% truth that you could engage about that conflict? Not all of it. Maybe the only 2% true part of it is true is that you didn't say anything earlier. But what is 2% truth of a conflict that you could embrace right now instead of just getting defensive? Take a second. I won't make you share the conflict, so get honest with yourselves. And if there is a 2% truth, was there a power dynamic that was coming into play that added to this conflict? If you are comfortable, put in a chat just the power dynamic, not the conflict, not your part. Just, was there a power dynamic that was also may be contributing to this conflict? I have some people lost in their conflicts now. Come back to me. Come back to me. It's okay. Breathe, breathe. Take a minute. Breathe. Power is always going to be there. But if you do these 4 types of things, why is that more energizing than the defensive power over stance? Why will this actually energize not just you, but your team? If you started embracing conflict, shining a spotlight, expanding connections, providing balance, why does that energize you and or the team? Why is this energizing? Why is power with energizing? Demonstrates openness. There's nothing worse than feeling like your leader is perfect because you can't resonate with the person, right? You can't You don't know if you can really trust, and trust is two-way. How else does it energize? Power with ownership. Yeah. Since doing this work, I haven't felt the need to write another session of sometimes being a leader sucks. Because it feels a lot less like it's being done to me than with me. But that starts with you as a leader in creating power with, not power over. Same good intent, very different results. So I'm going to put into chat the copy of this mural board for you. PDF, hold on. What's it called? I'm putting into chat the PDF from this meetup into chat. It should show up in just a second. And you have a copy of that. So you should see it in chat. Did I hit my time?
You're right on.
Score.
Sorry, I was downloading the thing you just provided. Thank you, Tricia. That was quite awesome. You realize I need to go out and get a copy of your book now. It was very good. Thank you.
Tricia, did you want to move on to see if we have any questions from the group?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we certainly have some time for some questions if anyone is interested in learning more. Or perhaps you have a situation where you have a power dynamic at play and you want to talk to the expert.
So,
I'm
Tricia,
strangely flattered by the stalking comments. So I
so
don't know
I do
what
have a
that
question.
says about me.
If I could throw one out real quick. So it sounds to me that the way that this was presented was, well, let me rephrase. The way that I was taking it was me versus my leader. And maybe that's the intention, but I think it could also be leader to leader.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Or because leaders, the only power dynamic that's a formal title one is formal. All the rest of them can apply in any shape, form, way, direction across the board.
So Tricia, I guess I coach high school athletes, track, cross country, and I'm very sensitive to the power dynamic because kids in high school are very much, they acknowledge formal power. That's what they're used to. So I can see applicability in other scenarios outside the office, because especially with working with young kids, it's tough as a coach to make sure you're influencing and not expressing formal power in that way. So I found this very valuable, and just to inform how I would approach athletes, especially high school athletes that are just doing things for the first time. I think this is very valuable to help shape that perspective.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm great with my teenagers about it personally, but if you can write that book, please let me know. I also will not hold a retro with my teenagers. I don't want their truth yet. But honestly, no, it really is. It is across the board. And you start to understand and keep in mind it doesn't even have to be real power. It could just be perceived. There are so many times that people perceive that I have more power than I actually do. Larry mentioned that I ran Agile 2017 as the overall, people are like, well, you could just decide. I'm like, oh, you think I get to make that decision? That's precious. Like, no, I didn't, right? So it doesn't even have to be actual power at times. It's just a perception can play into it as well. From Pam, how can you find the 2% when you're angry? You can't right in that moment. Honestly, you might remember I said I had to take a really deep breath, and I went into that moment with pure, I want to know what she's going to try and do, curiosity. I don't think if I had gone into that event with that, I would have been very successful in the moment, because there were other moments that did not go so well earlier, right, with it, things. But that is part of it is being in that moment. Like there have been times that I, as a leader, went, do you just think I'm trying to be evil? Like, what is this narrative you're writing? Right. Like, and it's not just even anger. It feels like insults, and it feels like judgment and blame. And it's hard to not react to those things. But I try to remember in that moment that even though I might be upset about how they're saying it to me, I might be angry about how they're saying it, they're still saying it to me. And that is way more important than when they get to a place where, like Sue did, blows back up and they're like, I ain't telling her again, right? And so I get to a place where sometimes I have to say, thank you, but I need to process this for a minute if I can't get to the 2%. Now, I am such an critical person of myself that I usually can get to that 2% very, very quickly once I mentally go there. But I may need a bit of time to be able to process it and get to a headspace where I don't just lash back out. But I try and remember that they're coming to me likely with good intent, even if what they're saying is hurtful, because they're still coming to me.
I think there's so much that we can apply immediately to what you talked about. It doesn't have to be that dramatic circumstance where you're having an interaction with the CEO and you're dropping a book on their desk. It could really be like tiny applications every day of these things to help people grow. I know for me personally, I talk so much all the time that after this conversation today, I can look at situations that are existing in my value stream and my org structure. And I am definitely the person that talks, and I need to step away and do the 1, 2, 4, or just shine a spotlight and let other people talk, because it is probably disabling others who are likely experts to shine. So.
And keep in mind, I'm not saying any of these things as somebody who has not gone through this journey herself. There was an Agilist named Pollyanna Pixton. She's retired now. And Pollyanna, oh, she was a spitfire, man. Oh, she was a spitfire. And we were out. I feel like I've been talking about drinking a lot. I blame this isn't, judge away. I don't care. So we were out in Vegas at a conference and we were having tasty beverages. And I said, well, I have to go because I have to answer a bunch of questions. And she's like, why? And she's like, aren't you an executive, have senior leaders and you have to leave to go answer a bunch of questions? I'm like, yeah, I got to help my team. I'm like, how is this bad? Right? And she's like, okay, you go a whole day without answering a single question and I'll buy your drinks. It's it's on. Anybody want to guess how many questions I went before I broke?
Not many.
Great.
Three questions, all I got to. And it made me realize that I had created a dependency on me, right? Because it also felt good. Let's be honest. It felt good. I felt valued. I felt needed. It was influential power at its peak. But I wasn't really helping the long game. And so I started fixing that, right? And thinking about how I was going to do better and expanding connections and doing these things. And then you get that text later down the road. And I it's like, oh, but am I still valuable? Did I still do a good job? Am I still helping people? Right. And you start panicking about that stuff. And then you get that text from that person and they're like, thanks for a great one-on-one. And you're like, we didn't meet this morning. And he's like, oh, so I said, we didn't meet. You sent this text to the wrong person. He goes, oh, no, I sent it to the right person. I just imagine going into your office as if I still worked for you. And you would just look at me like I knew the answer, but was avoiding doing what I needed to do. And you would give me that smirk that you always give, but you have confidence in my abilities. And then I knew what I needed to do, but I was afraid to do it. So now I'm going to go do it. I'm like, I am in your head. You can't get away. I am adding value and I'm not even doing anything now. But I think that's a very different definition of leader than what a lot of us were taught. A lot of us were taught to be the experts. A lot of us were taught to use power. It's one of the reasons that I love the Scrum Master role, is because if you can learn to do it without authority, you learn to be a leader. That you don't need the power to make change. In fact, you know that the power is actually jacking you up at times. But it's a journey. I have no idea how to get your teams to keep their comments or opinions to themselves. No idea. Let me know if you figure that out.
I don't think anyone does.
I'm trying to connect with the fact that we both want what's best for engineering.
It's really just coming from a current conflict, which is just at a lead level, like a tech lead level. We both very much want what's best for the engineers. It's just we are not connecting on like how he views it and how I view it and how at a team level we do it. So that was it's just really hard to try to figure out how to meld that.
Yeah, but for me, this is part of that mindset shift, because for me, that's exciting now. It's exciting because you have something to experiment with. Try a bunch of different experiments. Who needs the right or wrong? That's part of the thing, is we look at that conflict as like there's a winner and there's a loser. Bull. You're probably both 2% right. The trick will be, can you find the combined 4%? Because that's what's even better for the team. So I look at those differences of hows and opinions and thoughts as potentially exciting, because chances are possibly what you build or what you experiment with and create can be so much better. But that's only when you embrace the conflict. If you don't, then it becomes this escalated drama of winners or losers and who's going to win out in the end. And now no one does, right? Now, can it get to a place even when you try to experiment and then you're still bashing and clashing and all of that? Yes, and I understand that. But at the core, this is what wisdom of the crowd is different approaches, but having a shared aligned goal. Yeah, Aaron. And not only do they become leaders because they were experts, they also then not taught what a leader meant, especially for knowledge workers.
Right.
No one ever talked to me about power dynamics. Nobody ever talked to me about it. And it caused me a lot of pain and caused a lot of other people pain, as they didn't get it. I thought I could just be one of the team. And I wasn't.
Like, this has been very eye-opening, because I think we all can acknowledge that in all of our situations, we see this pretty frequently. So I know I definitely see a lot of application of this for every day. So, and as coaches, sometimes it's like, well, you're the expert. What should we do? Like, that's a power dynamic, right? It's like,
yeah, that's influential power. They're deferring to you.
Exactly.
And sometimes you want to give the answer, and that's okay. Like, I'm not saying you never give the answers. Absolutely.
But just recognizing the dynamic at play. It's like, oh, okay, this is how it is. I understand.
Are they still challenging you, or are they blindly following you? If they are blindly following you, you are power over with that influential power.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Any other last questions or last thoughts for Tricia? I think I can speak for the group when I say this has been a fantastic presentation. Tricia, this has been very eye-opening, very enlightening, and I know we will all take this back to where we work and be sensitive to it and be careful and look for opportunities to take a better approach.
Through that.
It was a pleasure to be here and to join in with this group. So thank you.
Thank you, Tricia, and I'll
Thank
talk to
you.
you at the next conference.
So we're sending out a short survey tonight. If you would please fill it out, and also we will see you in November for Paula Espinosa. And if you're in the Hartford, Connecticut area, and Tricia, this certainly applies to you as well, in the December timeframe on the East Coast.
I do love me some Richard too. I stalk Richard, so I do love me some Richard too.
He's a frequent speaker with Agile Hartford, so we love him. So he's a great guy. But if not, we will see you in November, maybe December, and if not, next year sometime. But again, Tricia, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.